my wife declared. From now on, my parents make our decisions. I just nodded. Then I served them all eviction notices. 3 days later, they called me crying from a motel room. I, 38 male, am, or I guess was, a happily married man. Or so I thought. My wife, Julia, 35, and I have been together for a decade. We built a life. A nice one. We have a beautiful home, the kind with a little garden out back that I'm ridiculously proud of. Here's the kicker. The house is mine. I bought it before we even met. It's in my name, and my name alone. This is a very important detail. Julia's parents, Albert and Evelyn, are a lot. They've always been involved, but in that passive-aggressive way that makes you feel like you're constantly being judged on your choice of cheese. For years, I've smiled and nodded. I've hosted the holidays, endured the backhanded compliments about my quaint hobbies, and even let Albert advise me on my career path, despite the fact he's been retired since I've known him. About 6 months ago, Albert had a bit of a health scare. Nothing life-threatening, thank God, but it was enough to send Evelyn into a tailspin. Suddenly, they couldn't possibly manage on their own anymore. Their big rambling house was too much work, and they needed to be closer to their darling Julia. I'm a reasonable guy. I suggested we look into some lovely assisted living communities in the area. They had pools, social clubs. I even found one with a pudding green for Albert. This was met with a level of horror usually reserved for discovering a spider in your cornflakes. Julia, bless her heart, was caught in the middle. She'd come to me, wringing her hands, saying, "They just love me so much, you know?" I knew. I also knew they were master manipulators. The pressure mounted. Tears were shed. Guilt was dispensed like after-dinner mints. Finally, against my better judgment, I relented. I agreed they could move in with us. We have a guest suite downstairs with its own bathroom and a small sitting area. It would be cozy. For the first month, it was almost bearable. Then the suggestions started. "You know, Jesse," Evelyn would say, peering into my spice rack, "a real chef organizes his spices alphabetically. That driveway is a bit of a mess, son." Albert would add, sipping my best whiskey. "A man should take pride in his concrete." It escalated. They started rearranging the living room furniture while I was at work. Evelyn decided my prize-winning roses were a bit garish and needed to be replaced with something more tasteful, like beige-colored shrubs. I came home one day to find my favorite armchair, the one I inherited from my grandfather, had been moved to the garage because it clashed with the new aesthetic. I tried talking to Julia. "Honey," I said, as calmly as I could, "your parents are redecorating my house and drinking all my good scotch." She gave me that pained look. "They're just trying to help, Jesse. They're adjusting. It's hard for them." The final straw came last Tuesday. I had cooked dinner. A nice risotto. I'm not a professional chef, but I do all right. I was rather pleased with it. Albert poked at it with his fork. "It's a bit mushy, isn't it? In my day, men didn't fuss so much in the kitchen. They provided." Evelyn chimed in. "Julia, dear, you're looking a little pale." "Jesse, are you making sure she's eating enough protein?" I just looked at Julia, waiting. She just stared at her plate. Later that night, I tried again. I sat on the edge of the bed. "Julia, we can't go on like this. This is my home. We need to set some boundaries." She finally looked at me, and her expression was one I'd never seen before. It was resolute. "I've been thinking about that," she said, her voice eerily calm. "And I've made a decision. My parents have been through a lot. They have wisdom and experience that we just don't have." I waited. "From now on," she declared, "my parents make our decisions. All of them. Financial, household, everything. It's for the best. They know what's right for us." I swear, the world tilted on its axis. I stared at her, at this woman I thought I knew. I saw her in-laws' smug satisfaction reflected in her eyes. I saw a future of beige shrubs and mushy risotto and being told how to be a man by a guy who hadn't worked a day in 20 years. Something inside me didn't break. It clarified. The hurt was there, a sharp cold spike in my chest. But it wasn't a hot, raging fire. It was a block of ice. I looked at her, at the stranger wearing my wife's face, and I just nodded. "Okay," I said. A wave of relief washed over her face. She actually smiled. "Oh, thank you for understanding. I knew you would. This will make everything so much easier." Yes, I thought, it will. Update. Well, folks, it's been an interesting 7 days in the People's Republic of Albert and Evelyn. Thank you for all the support on my last post. It's nice to know I'm not crazy. Or maybe I am, but at least I'm in good company. Julia's announcement was like flipping a switch. The subtext just became text. My in-laws went from being guests to feudal lords overnight. The first official decision was made the very next morning. I was getting ready for my Saturday morning bike ride when Albert appeared in the kitchen, wearing one of my bathrobes, I might add. "Jesse," he announced, not asked, "Evelyn and I have decided that your cycling hobby is too dangerous, and frankly, a little juvenile. We'll be selling the bicycle." I just looked at him. My beautiful carbon fiber road bike. My pride and joy. I'd saved for a year for that thing. "Okay, Albert," I said, pouring my coffee. He seemed a little thrown by my lack of argument. "Good. Glad you're finally seeing sense. We'll use the money to buy a proper adult exercise machine. A treadmill, perhaps. Evelyn wants one with a screen so she can watch her shows." Later that day, I found him in the garage taking pictures of my bike. To make the sale go faster, he'd listed it on a community forum for a ridiculously low price. He told me he already had a guy coming for it. I didn't say a word. I just went back inside. The small indignities piled up. Evelyn decided our weekly grocery budget was frivolous and replaced my carefully curated list with one that consisted mainly of bran flakes, prunes, and off-brand tinned soup. "It's about fiscal responsibility," she declared, while simultaneously ordering a $200 set of orthopedic slippers for herself using the joint credit card. I saw the charge pop up on my banking app. Julia, for her part, was floating on a cloud of blissful denial. "Isn't this great?" she'd say. "Mom and Dad are taking so much pressure off us." She didn't seem to notice that our home now had the ambiance of a retirement home morgue. She didn't seem to notice the way I'd stopped talking, stopped smiling. She just saw my compliance and mistook it for agreement. But here's what they didn't see. They didn't see me on my lunch break, meeting with a very brisk, very efficient lawyer. I didn't just see a property lawyer. I saw one who specialized in divorce. I explained the situation with the house deed and the recent declaration. Her eyes widened. "Document everything," she said. "Every receipt, every conversation." They didn't see me later that afternoon opening a new bank account at a completely different bank. They didn't see me methodically rerouting my direct deposit to this new account. They also didn't see me log into our joint credit card account. I didn't report the slipper purchase as fraud. It wasn't, technically. But I did lower the card's spending limit to the bare minimum. And most importantly, I removed Julia as an authorized user. The request would take 24 to 48 hours to process. Her card would soon be just a useless piece of plastic. The best part? My little moment of quiet rebellion. Albert, true to his word, sold my bike. Some kid got a fantastic deal. Albert was so proud of himself. He handed me a wad of cash. "Here you go, son. The proceeds." He'd managed to get about a quarter of what it was worth. "Thanks, Albert," I said, and pocketed the money. That night, after they were all asleep, I went online. I found my exact bike, a newer model, in stock at a shop a few towns over. I used the cash Albert gave me as a down payment and put the rest on a new credit card I'd opened that day. It's being delivered next week. To a P.O. box, of course. Julia came to me on Thursday night. "Jesse, my card isn't working. I tried to buy groceries and it wouldn't go through." "Oh," I said, looking up from my book. "That's odd." "And Mom's slipper order was canceled. The company said the payment failed. She's really upset." "Huh. Weird." She looked at me, a flicker of something, annoyance, suspicion, in her eyes. "Is everything okay with our finances?" "Our finances. That was a good one. As far as I know," I said, turning a page. "But remember, Albert and Evelyn are making the decisions now. Maybe you should ask them." The look on her face was priceless, the first tiny crack in the new world order. She had no idea that our joint account, the one her parents were so eager to manage, was about to become a barren wasteland. The auto payments for the mortgage, the utilities, the internet, all of it was scheduled to come from that account in the next few days. And I had just made sure the well was dry. They think they're in charge. They think they've won. What they don't realize is that I'm not playing their game anymore. I'm just enforcing the rules of mine. And in my game, in my house, the owner always wins. Update. So, the other shoe dropped, and let me tell you, it was a steel-toed boot. The first sign of trouble in paradise came, as predicted, with the bills. Our mortgage is due on the 1st. The payment is automatically debited from the joint account. Or it was. Last Wednesday I got an email from my bank. Payment declined, insufficient funds. I smiled. I took a screenshot for my records. Then I paid the mortgage directly from my new solitary account. The house was safe. My house. The internet was the next to go. On Friday evening, Evelyn was in the middle of her favorite streaming drama when the screen froze. A little message popped up. Please check your connection. Jessie, she shrieked from the living room. The internet is broken. Fix it. Can't, I called back from the kitchen, where I was enjoying a sandwich made with my own non-brand flake bread that I'd started keeping in a cooler in my car. The bill wasn't paid. A heavy silence. Then Albert appeared at the doorway, his face a thundercloud. What do you mean the bill wasn't paid? We are managing the finances. Everything should be paid. I said with a shrug. You're the one making the decisions. You tell me. Julia rushed in, phone in hand. Jessie, the bank app says our account is empty. Where's all our money? There it was again, our money. My paycheck gets deposited on the 25th, I said calmly. It should be in there. I deliberately did not say which in there it was in. Well, it isn't, she said, her voice rising to a pitch I hadn't heard in years. It's gone. Did you do something? I took a slow bite of my sandwich. Julia, you told me, and I quote, from now on, my parents make our decisions. That includes financial ones. I assumed Albert and Evelyn had it handled. I've just been doing what I was told and staying out of it. I wish I had a picture of the three of their faces. The dawning horror as they realized their control was a phantom limb. They had the title, but none of the actual power. They'd been so busy playing king of the castle, they hadn't bothered to check if the castle had plumbing. This is when the real fun began. The next day, Saturday, I decided it was time. I'd let them marinate in their powerless panic long enough. While they were having a frantic whispered family meeting in the living room, I went to my office. I printed out some documents. 2 were official, lawyer-drafted, 30-day notice to quit forms. The third was a simple letter. I walked into the living room and placed 3 envelopes on the coffee table. 1 for Albert, 1 for Evelyn, and 1 for Julia. What is this? Albert sneered, snatching his. He tore it open. His face went from red to a sort of pasty white as he read the legal eviction notice. Evelyn read hers over his shoulder, her hand flying to her chest in a dramatic gasp. But it was Julia I watched. She opened hers slowly, her hands trembling. It wasn't a legal form. It was my letter. Her eyes scanned the page. Then they lifted to meet mine. The confusion, the anger, the dawning betrayal. It was all there. You're divorcing me? She whispered, her voice cracking. You went to see a lawyer? That's the thing, Julia, I said, my voice quiet but firm. This isn't a decision for your parents to make. This one is mine. I've retained counsel and will be filing on Monday. I gestured to her parents. And they are no longer welcome in my home. They have 30 days. Evelyn found her voice first. You can't do this. We are family. You stopped being family when you decided I was your employee, I shot back. And you, I said, looking at Julia, stopped being my wife when you decided your parents' opinions were more important than our partnership. The scene that followed was spectacular. Albert started threatening legal action about his unlawful eviction. Please do, I said, gesturing to the paper. That's a legally binding notice for a tenant at will, Albert. Any lawyer worth his salt will tell you that you don't have a leg to stand on, but feel free to waste your money. Julia just started crying. Big, ugly, gulping sobs. How could you, Jessie? After everything, I thought you loved me. I did, I said. The past tense hung in the air, heavy and cold. But love isn't a blank check, Julia. You and your parents tried to cash it, and it bounced. I turned and walked out. I went for a long walk. When I got back, they had retreated to their rooms. The war room was silent. The next 3 days were a masterclass in emotional blackmail. Loud conversations about my cruelty. Tear-stained notes. It was pathetic. Then this afternoon my phone rang. It was Julia. Jessie, she sobbed. You have to help us. Why? I asked. What's wrong? We're at a motel, she choked out. The Happy Traveler Inn off the highway. The power got shut off this morning. Mom couldn't handle it. We packed some bags. I had, of course, paid the electricity bill for my new account, but I had also called the power company to have the account's responsibility formally transferred to my name alone. I I suspect the request triggered a bureaucratic mix-up that led to an early shut-off. A happy accident. My dad tried to use his card to pay for the room, she continued, and it was declined. They don't have any money, Jesse, you cut them off. I could hear Evelyn wailing in the background. So the decision makers, I said, unable to resist, made the decision to check into a motel they couldn't afford. A bold strategy. Please, Jesse, she begged. Let us come home, we can talk about this. A brief moment of pity washed over me. A sad, pathetic mess. But then, I remembered her smug look as she handed my life over. I remembered my grandfather's chair in the garage. The ice in my veins solidified. No, Julia, I said calmly. There's nothing to talk about. My lawyer will be in touch with yours. You all made your decision. Now you get to live with it. I hung up, and for the first time in a long time, my house was truly quiet. And it was all mine. Final update. It's been a while. Life has recalibrated. The quiet in my house is no longer unsettling. It's peaceful. The beige has been vanquished. My grandfather's armchair is back in its rightful place, and my spice rack is a chaotic, beautiful mess that only I understand. It's perfect. For those who followed this saga, you deserve a conclusion. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet, inevitable result of people's own bad choices. After the motel call, I held firm. Communication went through our lawyers, as it should. Albert, true to form, tried to sue me. He filed a claim for unlawful eviction. The court date was last month. I showed up in a suit. He, Evelyn, and Julia showed up looking haggard. He represented himself, blustering about his rights. My lawyer calmly presented the deed to the house and the complete lack of any lease agreement. The judge, a woman who looked like she'd seen it all, dismissed his claim in under 10 minutes. The divorce was the main event. Julia's lawyer, likely at Albert's insistence, tried to argue for a significant portion of the house's value. It was a non-starter. My lawyer pointed to its status as a premarital asset. She also filed a motion arguing that Julia's actions, effectively abandoning the marital partnership to install her parents as heads of the household, constituted a form of constructive desertion. The judge agreed. While Julia was entitled to a portion of the assets accumulated during our marriage, she had no claim on the house itself. The judge also granted my lawyer's petition for exclusive possession of the marital home pending the final decree. Legally, Julia had to leave. The fallout for them was swift. Broke and with no legal leg to stand on, they had to retreat to some distant cousin of Evelyn's who lived 3 states away and apparently had a basement they could inhabit. The divorce was finalized last week. I was not unkind. I didn't want to destroy her, just detach her from my life. She got enough to get a small apartment and start over. I kept the house, my savings, and my sanity. I heard through the grapevine that Julia's new life is not the idyllic family unit she envisioned. Shocking, I know. Apparently, when you're all crammed into a damp basement and there's no one else to blame, the cracks show. Albert and Evelyn's wisdom has soured into constant bickering, now aimed squarely at Julia. She's their caretaker and their scapegoat. She got what she wanted. She's with her parents, and they are making all her decisions. Do I feel guilty? Sometimes, a flicker. Late at night, I remember the woman I fell in love with. But then I remember her standing in our bedroom, her eyes cold as she casually handed over my autonomy. That wasn't a partnership. It was a hostile takeover. I just happen to own the building. I don't hate her. I don't have the energy for it. I just don't know her. And I don't want to. The other day, I took my new bike out, the one I bought with the money from the old one. I rode for hours, further than I had in a long time. The sun was on my face, the wind at my back, and I was moving forward, by my own power, on my own path. And when I got home, the only person there to greet me was the silence, and it sounded like freedom.